On a rainy evening in the Wyoming Territory of 1878, a cowboy noticed a woman wearing a beautiful white wedding dress. When he complimented it, she quietly whispered, "It was meant for the man I lost." What began as a simple conversation soon became a touching Old West story of grief, healing, and a second chance at love. If you enjoy emotional frontier romances and heartfelt cowboy tales, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories from the American West. And now, let's get started. The year was 1878 in the Wyoming Territory, and a cold spring rain swept across the frontier town of Red Creek. The wooden church at the edge of town glowed warmly against the gray evening, its lanterns flickering as ranchers, merchants, and farmers gathered for a charity supper to help families who had lost cattle during the harsh winter. Caleb Turner arrived late, brushing rain from his coat before stepping inside. He was a quiet cowboy in his early 30s, known more for his hard work than for conversation. As he removed his hat, his eyes settled on a woman standing near the altar. She wore a white dress, unlike anything he had seen in years. The fabric was simple but elegant, trimmed with delicate lace that caught the lantern light. For a moment, the noisy room faded around him. "You look beautiful in that gown," Caleb said as he approached. The woman turned slowly. Her dark eyes held both surprise and sadness. A faint blush touched her cheeks, but her smile carried a weight that did not belong to a celebration. "It was meant for the man I lost," she whispered. Caleb felt his chest tighten. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Her name was Eleanor Brooks. As the rain drummed against the church windows, she explained that the dress had been sewn 3 years earlier for her wedding to Samuel Reed, a young rancher from the Sweetwater Valley. Before the ceremony could take place, Samuel had been caught in a blizzard while driving cattle through the mountains. His body was never found. "After that," Eleanor said, smoothing the lace at her sleeve, "I packed the dress away in a trunk and swore I would never wear it again." Caleb glanced at the gown. "Then why tonight?" "The pastor asked me to help with the supper," she replied. "I opened the trunk this afternoon, and somehow I couldn't close it again. I thought perhaps it was time to stop hiding from a memory." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Around them, people laughed and shared food, but Eleanor seemed separated from the room by years of quiet grief. Caleb looked at her gently. A dress made for love should never spend its life locked away in sorrow. Eleanor studied him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Most people avoided speaking of Samuel, fearing they might reopen old wounds. Yet this stranger had listened without discomfort or pity. Outside, thunder rolled across the prairie. Inside the little church, beneath the soft lantern glow, Eleanor felt something she had not expected when she put on the dress that evening, a small, cautious warmth, as though the long Wyoming winter around her heart had finally begun to thaw. When the charity supper ended, the rain was still falling in steady silver lines across the dark streets of Red Creek. Caleb noticed Eleanor standing beneath the church awning, holding the hem of her white dress above the muddy ground. "My horse is tied just across the road," he said. "If you'd allow it, I could take you home." Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. Caleb helped her onto the horse and walked beside it through the rain-soaked trail leading toward the Sweetwater Valley. The night was quiet except for the sound of hoofbeats and distant thunder. After several minutes, Eleanor spoke. "Most people change the subject when Samuel's name is mentioned." Caleb kept his eyes on the trail. "A man who was loved deserves to be remembered." Her fingers tightened around the reins. "We planned everything. The ranch, the house, even where we would plant the cottonwoods. Then one storm took it all away." Caleb listened without interrupting. He felt no jealousy toward the memory of another man. Instead, he admired the loyalty that still lived in Eleanor's heart. By the time they reached her small farmhouse, the rain had softened to a gentle drizzle. Beneath the porch lantern, Eleanor looked at him. "Thank you for hearing a story that most people avoid." Caleb tipped his hat. "Some memories deserve respect." Over the following weeks, He found reasons to visit the farmhouse. Sometimes he repaired a broken fence. Other times he brought flour or coffee from town. Eleanor began inviting him inside for supper, and gradually the silence that had filled her home for years was replaced by conversation and laughter. One autumn evening, after the fields had turned gold, Eleanor opened the old cedar trunk in her bedroom. She carried the white dress into the parlor where Caleb sat by the fire. He looked up in surprise. Eleanor held the gown carefully in her hands. "This dress was made for the man I lost," she said softly. "For a long time I believed my heart was buried with him." Caleb rose slowly, unsure of what to say. "But you showed me that remembering the past does not mean refusing the future." Tears glistened in her eyes as she stepped closer. Caleb gently took her hand. The following spring, beneath the wide Wyoming sky, Eleanor walked toward him wearing the same white dress. This time it was not a symbol of sorrow or loss. It was a reminder that love can survive grief and still find a new beginning. And as Caleb placed a ring upon her finger, the dress that had once belonged to a broken dream became part of a hopeful new one.